show, Tony Nash. We are really excited to have a chat to you today.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Well, Nick and I really honestly feel like we're part of the Booktopia family. I know that Nick is desperately trying to get an invite to the Christmas party, but we're actually going to be published by Booktopia Editions, which is exciting. So before I jump into all the amazing things that you guys have been doing during COVID, I might just quickly throw to Nick because I know that he is desperate to ask you about your recent IPO. So big congratulations about that. But Nick, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, Tony, mate, congratulations on the IPO. First question is, what made you IPO during COVID?
A very interesting question. And you need to go back 4 years when we tried to IPO in 2016. And we had done a lot of work. It spent probably over a year preparing for that. And then as we were just getting very close towards the end, Amazon announced they were coming to Australia. And all the fund managers said, well, we're not going to invest in you because they're going to annihilate you. In the meantime, we've gone from 80 million in revenue to 200 million. So back then, for those that probably can't remember, but I can tell you if you definitely want to look it up and make sure I'm accurate, Temple & Webster were trading at around 15 cents. They're now like 10 bucks. Redbubble had dropped as well, it was very low. Kogan had listed half a year before and it kind of flatlined. Stitch was kind of heading off the exchange, not doing great. So it was like going down to Bondi Beach on a midwinter's day at 8 degrees to sell ice creams with a southerly coming in from the Antarctic. And so what happened was, it was not a good time to list back then. What happened was we got our first round of capital in January this year. So that was an $8 million raise of new capital. And then we got also some senior debt. And we used that money to invest in automation to get us from 30,000 books in and out per day to 60,000 books in and out per day. And that investment only went live a month and a half ago, right? So we were actually planning to IPO next year because we wanted all of that automation, all of that efficiency to kind of be integrated and then enable all of that to drop to the bottom line. And that was the plan. But with the pandemic, sales were up. Not to say that was like, oh, we've got to go now because sales are up, and when the pandemic finishes, sales will not be up. It was more that the spotlight had moved from retail into e-commerce, and e-commerce was going to be the future of retail. We've always been working on that, and many have, but the big retailers, the traditional retailers, all of a sudden said, we're going to throw a ton of money towards our e-commerce offering because they were making lots of sales and they realized it was a huge opportunity. So we fast-tracked it. We actually did it in less than 3 months to get from, all right, let's go for it, to actually getting it done, which is very, very quick. And the reason being, it was like going down to Bondi Beach at 42 degrees on a midsummer's day and go, ice creams. And the demand was very big. We knew that. We had spent the time, we'd proven that we're Amazon-proof. We'd proven that we're pandemic-proof. We had proven many years ago that we were recession-proof and that we were growth-proof. So it was a very opportunistic time for us to get to market and for everyone to realize the true value of Booktopia.
That's actually, you go.
So I was going to say the timing was fantastic because during COVID, how many e-commerce businesses listed during the past 6 months? And you got these massive valuations. And you're right, you look at a business like Kogan, I think pre-COVID, they were down to $4 share price and went up to $25 in November. It was just a really crazy, insane time, wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there was too many e-commerce businesses. Adore Beauty listed. There was certainly capital raises. Who else went?
MyDeal listed. You know, MyDeal.
They're more of a marketplace than e-commerce, but yeah, MyDeal listed. That's right. Yeah.
Sorry, Lisa, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's interesting how you spoke about being Amazon proof, because I actually sort of feel like Amazon haven't even really ramped things up here yet. And when they do, a lot of the local companies will potentially be in trouble if they haven't evolved. So can you reveal some of your plans for taking on Amazon or making sure that you don't, you can stay competitive?
Look, the thing about Amazon and the thing about being an alternative to Amazon, here's what I did, and this is, I think, really interesting. About 5 years ago, I did my own personal research on other markets where Amazon were already in a mature state. So North America and Europe. And I wanted to find out what was it about companies over there that were actually flourishing with Amazon already fully dominant. And everywhere I looked, it's because they focused on one thing and did it very, very well. So when a customer came to their website, they weren't trying to be everything to everyone, which is what Amazon is. If you want to buy books, or if you want to buy furniture, or you want to buy cosmetics, or whatever it is, if that's what you do and you do it well, then there's less clutter, there's less noise, and you can complete the transaction, and you can really engage and connect with your customer. So that's the one thing in terms of competing with Amazon, which I believe. The other thing about Amazon is they've really deprioritized books. Everyone knows that's part of their DNA, their history. It's less than 3% of their revenue now.
Good point. You're right.
In fact, they prefer for somebody else to sell the book to somebody else, and they take their clip of the ticket through the marketplace than actually fulfilling it themselves, where they actually don't make as much money. So they're a tech play. They've got their AWS, they've got Kindle, their ebooks, they've got Audible, their audiobooks, they've got their marketplace, anything that's digital, Prime TV, of course, all those things, it's a digital play. The logistics is kind of customer acquisition. And in Australia, they have not prioritized books. And at this stage, there's no evidence that they are interested in doing that. In fact, I already know from around the world that Amazon is deprioritizing books in North America and Europe because it's not as profitable as some of the other categories.
Interesting. And correct me if I'm wrong, the challenge with IPOing is you have to hit certain numbers every year to make sure your share price either stays what it is or continues to grow. What's next for Booktopia? How are you going to continue building the business moving forward?
I don't think we have that much control over the share price, right? Because the market moves we might say, come on, let's go from $2.80 today to $4. It's impossible to work that way because you're actually dealing with a market that is assessing. It could be a depression, it could be a recession, there could be the pandemic kicks on, all of the vaccines don't work. Who knows what could impact? So what we do have control of is in terms of our forecasts, in terms of our revenue and our profitability, and making sure that we hit those. So this year for FY21, our forecast is 205 million, and so therefore that's what we're gunning for, and our EBITDA is 9.5 million. So that's what it is today. My not long-term, my medium to long-term goals, I believe Booktopia can get through to 300 million, 400 million, 500 million in revenue. So when I think about the future, which is how I've got to 200 million, when we were at 100 million, is like you just reset your horizon targets for revenue and profit, and you go for those. And that's what we do well.
Taking a step back, when you first launched Booktopia, did you ever think you would get to $200 million in revenue? What was the aim behind the business when you first launched?
$200 in revenue. What are you talking about? No, before Booktopia, when I say we, I'm in business with my brother, my sister, my brother-in-law, although my brother has retired. So I'm still in business with my sister and my brother-in-law, although when I say in business, we have a very huge executive and board of directors, etc. So although that's the origins, it's not a family business today. So before Booktopia, we actually had an internet marketing consultancy where we did SEO and Google AdWords, PPC management, driving traffic into websites. Before that, we had a internet software business. So we had built our own chat software product, so we were selling that. And before that, I had an internet recruitment company that was on the internet for IT people. So I started my first business on the internet in 1996.
Wow.
So I've been doing that. So when my brother won a project to work on Angus and Robertson to get them to the top of Google in 2003, they outsourced the website and fulfillment to a company in Sydney that did it all for them. This company managed 80 bookstores' websites, and we had a meeting almost 17 years ago to the day where we pitched the idea of, hey, remember we did a good job getting Angus and Robertson to the top of Google? Why don't you introduce us to all your other 80 bookstore customers and we'll get them to the top of Google and you'll make lots of money? And the owner of the company said, no, not interested. I said, well, how does it all work? And he said, look, it takes 10 minutes to set up a store. You give us the name of your bookshop, and within 10 minutes, we'll have a bookstore website up and running with your name up the top and 1 million books on there. And if you sell anything, we pay your commission. So I said, wow, that sounds interesting. And he said, yeah, I know it does, but only traditional bookstores are the ones that any decent revenues come through. All the online only stores have made nothing of it. I said, fair enough. So I left that meeting and I said to my brother, I wouldn't mind giving that book thing a bit of a go. So there was no light bulb moment. There was not like, I can see an opportunity. It was just simply, I'll give it a go. So from 9 p.m. till 2 a.m. every night, I worked on Booktopia. My brother gave me a budget of $10 per day. He's very generous. and I used that money. And instead of going for search terms, because I was a Google ad expert, bookstore, bookshop, or books, I avoided them in the beginning and went for author names and titles. So that when someone already used Google and they clicked on my ad, I sent them through to those books by, of that title or that author. And that way I was able to get going. So it took me 3 days to sell my first book. By the end of 4 months, I was up to 30,000 a month. By the end of the year, 100,000 a month. By the end of 2 years, 200,000 a month. So without any planning or vision, we ended up with a $2 million online store. It was probably then, after 2 to 3 years, that we realized maybe we're onto something here. And that's when we parted ways with that other company who managed the site for us, built our own site, did our own fulfillment, and we went on from there. So there was no like, oh, we can really see it. It was just one thing led to another that took us, probably like, some sort of murder mystery where you're going from one, discovery to another, and finally you get to the end. And it was really like that. It was a voyage of discovery.
Well, congratulations. That's really exciting. And $10 a day, you really stretched that $10 very far, which is amazing.
Imagine if he gave me $20.
Yeah.
Goodness.
God, so he's pretty tight with the finances, but you made it work, which is great. So I know that you have recently branched off into Booktopia Editions, which is really exciting. So we are some of the lucky, or two of the lucky authors who'll be publishing books. Are you going to say something?
Yeah, sorry, Liz, before we get into that, can I ask a couple of questions around the startup area?
Oh, yeah.
Don't mind, sorry. In the past 17 years, have you thought about going, this is just bloody too hard, I've had enough of this, I'm going to cut it loose? Never. Not once.
Never.
Okay.
Never. Because we've been growing, if you think about it, we've been growing, say, even when we hit $10 million in revenue, which is a big size if you think about it with all the online stores, that was 2008. So from 2008 through to 2020, where we did 165 million, you work that out, that's 35% compound annual growth on our revenue every year. Now, it wasn't always 35%, but that's growing at that rate for that period of time. So when you're getting votes from your customers, meaning they're dipping into their wallets and handing over their money to buy from you, and you can hire more people and you can write more software, take more space, hold more stock. It really is just going from one level to another level. So we've never kind of plateaued or there's always been challenges. There's always been something that comes out of left field. That's what being in business is about. Yeah. But it's not about letting that obstacle or thing that you think is going to catch you, stop you. Not at all. You just, okay, how are we going to deal with this? How are we going to work around it? That's how it's really been. It's never been like, are we going to give not for me, maybe for others, but definitely not for me.
So you mentioned it's not a family business, but you work with your brother and sister. Have you ever had any disagreements or arguments that thought, stuff it, I'm going to walk out of here because my brother and sister's been a pain in the ass?
Nah, because I'm the CEO and they do what I tell them to do. No, just joking. So my sister took very much an operational role all the way through. My brother-in-law, so it was really the three of us. And I don't often share this story, but I'll share it with you. Is that when it was about 4 or 5 years ago, we had an HR manager who came into me and said, Tony, your business is going down the toilet. We've got a lot of problems. I said, really? Why is that? She goes, oh, well, marketing, they hate IT, they hate marketing. You've got a lot of, people issues. And so really, oh my God, I didn't realize. Okay, thanks for letting me know. And so I went off and spoke to the head of IT and I asked him, I said, boy, you really must hate marketing. He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, well, I was speaking to HR. No. Those guys are geniuses in marketing. No, they're incredible. What they know about books is just completely unique. And so what about the whole idea of you hating them or being frustrated? Oh yeah, they're hopeless with keeping to time. Like they give us all of the assets in the last minute, and for us to try and get that onto the site, it's too chaotic. There's no planning. we can't, it's really impossible. Oh, okay, got it, right. So then I went across to marketing and I asked, so you really must hate IT. And the woman, the guy said to me, no, those guys are geniuses. Like what they know about tech and IT, it's just like, we've got the best team in the country. Really? So what about HR? And, oh yeah, they're very demanding and, like it drives us crazy when they want this and they want that. Okay, got it. It's a bit of sibling rivalry. So after a few months, she resigned. And before she left, I asked her, do you mind if I just do an exit interview, informal exit interview? And I asked her again, so do you really feel that Booktopia is going down the toilet? And she said, absolutely. I said, I want to ask you a question. Do you feel one of the reasons that we're doing this is because we're all not rowing together? Like if we all rowed together, we'd get somewhere. And she goes, that's absolutely right. You're all you're disjointed, right? It's just not working. I said, well, I don't subscribe to that thinking. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I'm not a sailor, but I know how a sail works. And if you've got a good wind behind you and you want to go fast, you put up the spinnaker, right? So you've got a sail which you've got 3 points, and 1 point is pulling in one direction, 1 point is pulling the other direction, the other's pulling in the other direction. And by them all working together, pulling in different directions, the sail goes up and you go flying through the water. I said, that's how we operate, because we all got a common goal. We're all working towards the same thing. And how do I know this? Is because I've worked with my brother for 20 odd years. And he hates spending. He is very frugal. So when I have this great marketing idea, I'm already thinking about what's Simon going to say? How is he going to cut this one down, or how is he going to take it apart? So it was very frustrating, but very helpful to work with him, because although we were growing, I also had profit in mind, or I also had sustainability in mind, and we never overextended ourselves. So that's something that I think a lot of business owners need to understand, that sometimes you got to, it sounds like everyone is kind of at each other, but actually no, it's like a family, and you might be squabbling, but you love each other and you're all working towards a common goal, and you all want each other to succeed most of the time. I mean, there are some families that don't, but most of the time you kind of want to work together. I think that's really important to understand, kind of the dynamics of a fast-growing, bootstrapped company with lots of people who are very passionate and enthusiastic about hitting certain outcomes.
Yeah. So how involved are you still in the day-to-day running of the company? Because it seems like you love the marketing aspect. So is that something that you're quite involved with, or are you just sitting there top level and you're just sort of overseeing everything?
Yeah, I'm involved and not involved. I've got so many great people working within our organization now that it's probably a bit more like the captain of a very large ocean liner, where you're on the deck, but you've got a lot of people around you. Not to say that I've ever been there, but I can imagine there's a lot of engineers and navigators and whoever else. And even though you've got computer systems talking to you and giving you information, they're probably double checking and checking, a bit like that, and going, but I set the horizon point. Because if I said to you, come on, let's go down to the harbor and let's go east, we could end up in Alaska or we could end up in Antarctica. So it's really not helpful. So if I said we're going to New Zealand, you'd go North or South Island. I'd go North Island. And you'd go, great. Wellington or Auckland? Auckland. Actually, Auckland, where the marina is, where they have the America's Cup? That's where we're going. And you go, got it. So a lot of my work is about really having a clear horizon point. This is where we're heading. Then it's easier for everyone to say yes or no. No, that doesn't fit within what we're doing. Yes, that does fit within what we're doing. And I think that's, having a very clear horizon point is really important.
So how do you determine that horizon point? So I know that you mentioned that you look off overseas and you see what other companies are doing in similar industries, look who's competing with Amazon. So how do you work out where you want to go and where you want to take the company?
Mostly it's around revenue, and through revenue. So for us to get from 200 million to 300 million, what does that mean? Well, then you got to calculate how many units per day. Okay, can our facility handle that many units per day? And if we are shipping out that many units per day, how much is coming in to facilitate that? Therefore, how much space do we need based on the stock? How many customer service people do we need if we're going to be there? And so on and so forth. So you kind of, I'm sure it's like some sort of military operation where you've got this outcome that you need to do, but there's a lot of people involved to make that happen. And in a similar way, it's that's the way that I look at it. I'm thinking about where do we want to be, and and keeping those numbers as simple. So there's revenue and profit. And if you do that, then you've probably got, I'm sure, like if we really wanted to have all the dials of our car, you know, up in front of the dashboard there'd be tons of dials. It'd be like some sort of A380, you know, plane or some fighter. For us, we have a couple, you know, this is your you know, speed, and this is probably the temperature or something else on there. And that's about all we get given, right? And that's a little bit the same as how I like to kind of think about those big broad goals.
Tony, what's one piece of advice you would give to a startup founder who's looking to kick a business off in 2021? What's the one piece of advice you think is going to help them succeed in business?
Focus on the cash. Money needs to come in the door. You don't have an idea, or you've got an idea, but you don't have a business until money is coming through and people are handing over money, handing over their cash, swiping or doing whatever to ensure that you actually have a real business. Otherwise, there'll be more months left at the end of the money than more money than at the end of the month. And you want to make sure you got more money at the end of the month. And that's why when I think about things, I think about, and people pitch to me, or they come, might be at a barbecue or somewhere, and I've got this idea, and I'm going, so just explain to me the money part of this. How's the cash going to work? Because that's how I think about it. You know, you've got to have people wanting to hand over money. If you do that, then you're adding value. And if you're adding value, then people will willingly want to pay you for that.
Is that similar advice for businesses who are looking to scale?
As in organic, you mean, or versus and going out and getting funding?
Yes, yeah, organic.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to, I mean, for me, the way that I used to think about it is like, oh, we needed a CFO, right? Because we never had one before. We had an external guy who did our financials for us. And I was like, okay, what revenue do we need to be at to afford that person? And so therefore, we've got to get to there. Great. All right, let's focus. How are we going to get to that revenue so then I could pay for that person? And I've done a lot of that over time to be able to build it. So it's really, and it really is important to make sure you've got a recruitment strategy, that you've got other people coming into the business. Because if it's just you working 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day, it's not sustainable. And you've got to make sure that you're positioning that you're ready to employ people to assist you to get further. Booktopia has over 200 people working for us. So we need to, you don't get that by going, snapping your fingers and going, all right, everyone's here. Slowly building and attracting good people is super important as well.
Fantastic. And actually, I just want to know what's your top business book that you'd recommend for people who are looking to start up a business? Because I know that Nick and I are both avid readers. I actually gave Nick 40 books from Booktopia for his 40th birthday. He's actually that old. But yeah, what's your favorite book?
For business, see, the thing is, for me, it's about personal development. So it's your skills, it's your automatic skills that come when things happen. Like if the other day, my neighbor, who's he's an enthusiastic handyman around the house, right? And I was reversing my car out of the driveway, and there was someone standing over him because he had been using a pickaxe to get some bamboo out of his lawn, and he tumbled down for one ledge and another ledge and bumped his head, and so he's lying there. He was unconscious, but by the time I got there, he had come out of unconsciousness, right? So we're standing around there going, are you okay? What? Right? And then just so happened that a doctor drove past, stopped, got out of the car, and started asking better questions and knowing how to deal with him at that time, because it was automatic for him. So being a business owner and being in business, these things, you can't be sitting there going, now, what did they say? I did that course and that workshop, and I remember that slide that I saw, and I'm supposed to, when a pandemic hits, no one actually ever looked at whether, no one ever thought of whether even Australia Post never planned for a pandemic, funnily enough. But it's like it's got to be automatic. So a lot of, when you ask me what's a good business book, that's very technical to me. And although I enjoy listening to them and business ideas and so forth and all those great classics, I'm more into, like, I like parables. Oh, there you go.
I just bought this from Booktopia literally last week.
Tim Ferriss, yeah.
Great book.
Right. So for me, I'm not much of a reader. I will listen to audiobooks while I'm driving backwards and forwards to work. And I'm more experiential. It's probably my ADHD. I don't have the patience or focus to sit down and read from cover to cover. I need to be learning through process. So for me, I'm more interested in business parables. I'm more interested in, you know, like the 1 Minute Manager, where you can get these really quick insights and then apply them. So for me, books like from Brené Brown, for example, she's so talented and intelligent. And to me, when I listen to her books, she really calls me to account in terms of being the best I very can be as a leader. And that's the kind of books that I want to read, because ultimately it's these kind of people skills, and rather than technical leadership skills. That's not the kind of leader that I am. I'm you know, more of a motivational leader, and let's, you know, go to that mountaintop, or let's, you know, it's probably a very, you know, bit Tolkien kind of, let's, you know, go on a quest. And that, so I'm more inclined to that. But you know, those are the kind of books that really are important. I've enjoyed listening to more technical books, say like Simon Sinek or Daniel Goleman, or you know, Gladwell. Those kind of books I've really enjoyed. Sapiens I just listened to recently, which I would never be able to sit down and read. I just don't have the patience to kind of go through page by page. But I've been able to enjoy it and educate myself and consider perhaps some of the things that I have been doing, and reconsider other ways of operating. So that's interestingly, that's how I'm made up.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually just bought Sapiens, so I'm going to give it a go and attempt to read it, because I do like audiobooks as well, especially when the person writing the book is narrating the story. I really enjoy that. Yep. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for. I'm just going to squeeze.
No, we want more. This is fun.
Loves it.
This is part one. This has got to be part one. We got to do a part two.
Yeah, we're coming on your podcast soon, so you can ask us.
There you go. Okay, great.
Not too hard question, but just to finish off, I actually just wanted to have a quick chat about Booktopia Editions, because Nick and I are working on our book over the holidays, and we had an amazing chat with Francois, who's an absolute legend. But I found it really interesting that Booktopia is moving into the publishing world. So why did you make that decision, and what's the future of publishing at Booktopia?
Yeah, okay. So when I talked before about, you know, focusing on one thing and doing it really well. So what happened 4 years ago is that we had the opportunity of becoming a distributor for a publisher who had lost their local Australian distributor, and we became the distributor. And the margins are better because you're the distributor now, not the retailer buying from a distributor. You get your stock on consignment rather than having to purchase it. There's a lot of things that were really appealing to us. We had already made the investment in the automation and the infrastructure to be able to handle that. So we started to chase down a lot more distribution opportunities. So now we're the distributor in Australia for some reasonably large and well-known publishing brands. And it was about a year and a half, probably a year and a half now, when I met up with Francois, and asked him, you know, I'm thinking of you doing a few, you know, I'd like to get into publishing, because he had been the head of managing director of Simon & Schuster in Australia. So I'd known him for many years, and he was at the time in another role, needed to finish, brought him on board, and then we started going out and looking for these opportunities. And that gets you even deeper, because now we're dealing with the author, we're not dealing with some other publisher as the distributor with an author behind them. So we're getting deeper into the margin. We can do more, we can offer more to our customers potentially. We have a lot more leverage around that. And so therefore, for me, it was about getting into it. And I'll tell you a funny story, because one of the books that we did a licensing deal with, this one behind me here. So Patricia Cornwell is quite a famous.
One of my favorite authors.
She's quite a famous global author, Patricia Cornwell, and Amazon pinched her from her publisher to do a two book. It was a sci-fi crime kind of book, not her normal crime book. So it was a bit different. And so Francoise organized a deal with Amazon to actually license it as a club edition for us here in Australia, just to be available to our own Booktopia customers, not that we could resell it out to everyone else. So a few weeks later, Francoise and I were in Frankfurt for the big global book fair that's on every year, except this year because the pandemic. And I had a meeting with the lady from Amazon, and I asked her, I said, you know, before we get into the meeting, you know, we just done this deal with you on the Patricia Cornwell book. Had you actually ever heard of Booktopia? And she goes, yeah, of course. I heard of Booktopia. I've been in, you know, the book part of Amazon for 7 years, and I studied publishing at university. So I said, and she goes, but before we did this deal, I did my research and I asked people within Amazon about Booktopia, and they said, yeah, you know Booktopia. They're the Amazon of Australia. Now, must have had a bit of an odd look on my face when she said that. She goes, oh, I don't mean that in a bad way. And so that's, to me, I knew that we're heading in the right direction.
You started crying when you heard that. You got a tear of joy.
No, I was giggling that night. As I was walking to get a kebab, just thinking about what she said. It was hilarious. But the thing for me is that it's about adding value. It's about what do our customers want. There's a lot of great authors that don't get represented by publishers. They don't get a publishing deal. And we feel that we can bring those authors closer to our customer base, which is millions of people, to create opportunities. And that's what we're looking to do. And for me, I like to shake up the industry as much as I can. And I think this is another way of doing it.
Fantastic. Well, we are very excited. So thank you for welcoming us into the Booktopia family. I know that Nick and I are going to be busy over the break writing the book. Well, I know I will be. Nick will be writing his name on the cover of the book. But no, we're really excited, and massive congratulations on everything you've achieved.
Well done, Tony. Well done.
Yeah.
And to you guys, because I know Francoise he's bloody tough to say yes to. So you've obviously you got the right ingredients there, because it's just so easy to write a book these days. Anyone can sit there at their computer and crank something out, but for something that is worth publishing, one of the things you'll soon realize, though, and I think for any budding authors that are out there, a lot of work needs to go in by the authors to get them out there. They think by writing this book and getting it published that all of a sudden there's these magical things happen, like Bewitched, and you kind of wiggle your nose and all of a sudden you're a bestseller. Is a lot of hard work, and it may take 3 or 4 books before someone really can crack it and master the craft of writing as well. So good luck, but you've gone past where many have not, and that is to be published by Francoise. Good on you.
Yeah, Lisa's a sweet talker. She's done well.
I pretty much went in and just didn't really give him a choice. And I don't know if he told you, but we don't even have the manuscript, and we don't even know what we're writing about yet. But he's just like, in 30 years of publishing, I've never given someone a deal without knowing what they're writing or not seeing the manuscript. So I just said it's going to be the best publishing experience of his life. So Nick and I have a lot of work to do to live up to that. But, like, massive congratulations to you guys. We're just,
well done, Tony, especially the IPO. Congratulations. And mate, past 17 years, very impressed with the growth of the company. Well done.
Yeah.
No worries.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks so much. Thanks for your interest.
All the best.